Yes, although I gotta double check my signature.
Will, one second. Will's putting together a resource list that's going to include all of the contacts and resources that we've introduced you to as far as forest shipping and CASA, and it'll also include Panther's contact information and David Beja Custom House Brokers on stateside. Forrest says that she can do customs work and clearance for you. I've never worked with her, so I'm not 100% comfortable telling you to do that, but I have worked with David Beja for several years, and he's the one that was on the call if you guys joined us with it on the conference call a couple weeks ago. So we'll make sure that goes on the resource list as well. And he says he'd be available for a Skype call if you guys want to talk to him still while you're here. So covered translators. Okay, just a couple of things that were brought to my attention. One of them from Seth. He actually was working the market yesterday, and we were talking in the elevator. He said that when he talks to suppliers in the market about pricing and trying to get a good price and figure out what minimum order quantities. And he says that a lot of the suppliers, unless you actually tell them up front, they assume that you're buying a really small quantity. One of the things that makes this market popular is the fact that you can buy a small quantity. You can literally buy 1 unit or 10 units. So when you talk to a supplier about price, assume that they're thinking you're wanting like 10 or 15 units, which is a really, really small order. So what Seth, and it's true, I knew that of course, but he reminded me last night that if you don't actually tell them that you're looking for a bigger quantity, then they're going to assume that it's a small quantity, so you may not be getting the price or your target price that you're looking for. What I like to do is tell suppliers that, my goal is to order 2,000 or 5,000 units once we get rolling. That way we can get a good price, but then give them a test order of 500 or 1,000. That number may be 50 or 100 for you, but if you really want to take 100 pieces right now, get a quote for 500 or 1,000, and then say, okay, well, our company policy is we need to take 50 pieces or 100 pieces to test the market and test the quality. So thanks for sharing that. Someone else pointed out that they were walking around looking for different suppliers, and they noticed that they seen some pretty good product that was kind of on the short list that they were looking for. But it was stacked. There was a bunch of stuff piled up on top of it. It was maybe last year's model or something. And it was, basically like you hear everyone else say, it was out of place. It really wasn't in the category that you would think it would be in. But they seen it laid over in a corner underneath a bunch of other stuff. And they're like, hey, do you have that? And they're like, oh no, that's last year's model. But in this particular scenario, it was exactly what this gentleman was looking for. So when you go into these little stalls, don't assume that everything they have available is hanging on the wall, because they have, they could have it piled up underneath the table or whatever. So, another reason to be open-minded when you're looking around over there. I want to tell you a quick story here about Amazon and a personal friend of mine, Mr. Darrell right here. He's a guy that looks like he ate us all for lunch before he got here. It's hilarious seeing him in the back of the room like that. See how big he was? Anyway, raise your hand, Darrell. That way people can pull you to the side. This gentleman here started his Amazon business just probably, he actually rented a closet from Seth and I when he started his company. And he just needed a place to get away from home, and start working on his Amazon project. Close this. It's okay. So anyway, just to brag on him, I'm going to toot your horn a little bit here, Darrell. He started it. This is the first time this guy's never been in any kind of business on his own. Grew up around a farmer with farmers, right? He's in the middle of nowhere, central Indiana. Anyway, so he's going to go out on his own. He's going to start his entrepreneurial career on Amazon, which is a pretty good decision, obviously. So he starts his business, and he gets into a space that's, pretty crowded, but still a lot of room. And first product he launched, without going into details, it took off really good as far as sales go. And we decided to support Darrell under our umbrella, to help him get things going, and took a vested interest in his company. So we were helping him out quite a bit. But Darrell, he just lived, sleep, eat, and breathe this business daily. This was his baby, and it was, I think he actually went out and borrowed like $5,000, right, from a family member, and guaranteed him 50% return on the investment. So course, just like everyone else, you know, when you start a business, everyone's going to give you 101 reasons why it's not going to work, and that you're going to fail, and you're going to lose your ass, and I mean, you've probably heard all these stories, right? So Daryl gets up and running, and I was sort of proud of his top line sales, you know, but I wasn't seeing the entire picture. And pretty soon you were doing what, $15,000 to $20,000 a month in sales, pretty easily.
It went from 5,000 the first month to 10, and then 50.
5,000 to 10,000 to 50,000. So when Daryl starts hitting $50,000 on one product in about 4 or 5 variations, I got kind of excited about it. You know, I wanted to pour a little more money into his business until we started looking at the bottom line. And what it was, the $50,000 Daryl was grossing in revenue on Amazon was making him about maybe $4,000 in net profit. He was literally selling a product that cost him $6 or $7 landed for about 18. I might be off a little bit on that, but he was profiting like 30 or 40 cents per unit. Yeah, so I'm sure some people can relate to that. Like I told him, if that was me, and that was one of our, you know, within our plethora of product, we would probably just tossed it, you know, and kicked it to the curb and went on to something else. But this was Daryl's baby, so he got real creative with his supplier, and, you know, first thing he found out was that his product was about 1/2 inch over the, what's it, 18 inch? Oversized, Amazon oversized is 18 by 14 by 9, is that right? His particular product, is that right? Yeah, close enough. Anyway, his product was about 1/2 inch over standard size, which was costing him an extra $3.50 per unit for storage and for fulfillment. So, yeah, all he did was shorten it 1/2 inch, and he increased his profit from $4,000 a month to how much? Give me a rough figure. About $20,000 to $30,000. Yeah. So he's actually giving the consumer less product and making a lot more money. So instead of making 30 or 40 cents per unit, he started making $6 to $7 per unit. And that's one of the things that, you know, I want to point out when you're talking to these suppliers. I know we heard some stories last night about people who were trying to better the product and change some of the components, and they're not willing to do that. Well, had Daryl not thought outside the box, he'd still be $5,000 in debt, and he'd probably be back at his 9-to-5 job right now. But right now, he's got an exciting business. It's a year old. He started with the one product. He's still in the same niche, and he's doing $90,000 to $100,000 a month, and he's still netting 30 to 40%. Hats off to you, Daryl. Yes, sir.
Actually, this story just brings me to ask you another question, which is, I know that Amazon puts a limit on how many oversized units you can send in. How do you overcome that? Because I found a product that I want to source, and it's oversized.
That's a good question, guys. The question is, Amazon puts a limit on how much oversized inventory. I think you start out at 500.
500.
Yeah. I think our biggest account is what, only 1,500 or 2,000 stuff. They're really, it's really tough to get them to increase that threshold. So I'm going to ask Seth to answer that because he deals with that on a daily basis. But that's a perfect example of where Forest Shipping can help you with your business because they can store your extra inventory in their West Coast warehouse. $25 per pallet per month.
Ship it in increments?
Exactly. We've had that issue. We actually had a product once that was real close to the oversized, and we shipped in probably 30,000 units. And once it was in Amazon's warehouse, the packaging started to open up a little bit, and that product became about an inch oversized. And next thing you know, we had tens of thousands of products that were in the oversized department. So you have to be really careful about that. Anything? Seth's going to give you an idea how you get that increase. Thank you. Seth Stevens.
So if okay. So normally it's based on your velocity. So if you send in a small amount, you sell through. It's based on your sell-through rate. I don't remember what's the exact sell-through rate. Maybe 60% every, whatever. But it's based on the velocity. So if you send in 100 oversized units and you sell through all 100 within 30 days, then they'll keep increasing it for you. But one trick that we use, and I don't know if you want to recommend this to everyone, is when you're building out your listing, just mark it as undersized, and you can, if it's a new listing, you can just ship in oversized units, and then now you can actually get into that category without having the space.
Nice. Did you guys get that?
No.
Okay.
Market, but
Yeah, so basically that's what happened to us with the product that opened up in the warehouse. They automatically moved it from standard size to oversized. So what Seth said, if you want to hack the system, so to speak, ship in your product and give it the wrong dimension, and then once they receive it, they're not going to send it back to you. They'll just go ahead and add it to your oversized inventory. You can try that on a small scale. Sounds
That
good?
would be something, if you do, you don't talk about. In in front of cameras.
Exactly. So, yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, just a point there reminded me that you really need to be checking your fees, your FBA fees, because we've had several times now where we were being overcharged for storage fees and for the pick and pack fees on the larger items, even though there were smaller items. And if you go back to Amazon and you discover this, then you can get them to refund you those fees. We had one particular product that they were charging us the additional fee for small oversized, whatever they call it, right? Not large, but just slightly over. And we literally got $10,000 back by just asking them to fix it. Even though our product dimensions were there, same thing for you? Yeah. So make sure that you're paying attention to all the fees. One of the ways to do that is using Managed by Stats to understand all the fees that you're using, but also going to each transaction inside Seller Central and look at the total fees. You go use the FBA calculator to see what it should be, and if it's more than that, see if it's a size issue. Yeah.
So in regards to that, the FBA calculator is also a really easy way, because it will, if you put in your product, it will actually tell you.
Right, exactly.
It'll give you the oversize.
Right.
And you can say, oh, but my competitor is $4 less.
Yeah, so he's saying go ahead and use the FBA calculator on your own ASIN to test that, because it'll tell you the breakdown of fees. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Seth just brought it to my attention that a lot of times we actually specifically design products to be undersized, and which is pretty tough to do. You guys have to imagine that in our Amazon business, we have close to 400 unique items, and each item we have several listings for. So we design a product specifically to be undersized, and then once Amazon receives it, somebody in the warehouse is in a bad mood and they have a funny tape and they mark it as oversized. So Seth says if you'll go back and bring that to their attention, they'll remeasure and then mark it as undersized. So, yes, sir.
We actually, Amazon has an error on the weight of one of our products, and it's extremely in our favor. So I haven't wanted to.
Yeah, don't touch that one. We have that too.
I was curious if they could come back if they ever do finally figure it out, if they could come back and try and collect the extra.
They obviously they can, right? If they choose to go look at all your orders and stuff and what they charge you. The situation that we had in order to recover those costs is they came back to us and said, okay, tell me all the transaction IDs, that the order IDs that this was an issue for. So I just literally downloaded all my orders and sent them a spreadsheet with like 60,000 orders on them. I didn't split up the products. They just paid me for all of them.
Nice.
Yeah, that reminds me of, you guys ever played the board game Monopoly, of course, when you pull the card and it says bank error in your favor? We love Amazon error in our favor. It's happened several times. It's kind of a funny story, but we would ship in a product, we'll just say toothbrushes, for example. And 6 months later, we decide the product's not moving. So Seth will request the product back, 20,000 toothbrushes, but instead it gets like, 5,000 laptop bags or something crazy like that. Seriously, it's happened a lot of times. CDs, smartwatches, weird stuff like that. And then we'll email and say, hey, you guys sent us like all this inventory of DVD sets, box sets. What do you want to do? And they said, well, just go ahead and keep it, and then we'll also reimburse you for the inventory we lost, which means they also reimburse the person who owned the laptop bag or the smartwatch. Man, it happens all the time. It's like community chess, bank error in your favor. And you try to fix it, but they're just so big they don't have a system for that apparently.
Anytime you're getting away with something like that, where it's really in your favor, I would strongly suggest that you figure out how much it is in your favor and set those funds aside, keep it as like a savings account, a reserve, right? Someday when you get rid of that account, then you can go spend it, but I've just seen too many times, not in these types of situations, but in other situations where somebody's counting on that error
Yeah.
and all of a sudden somebody catches up to it, and now they go broke.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want that to happen to you.
It's an item that's over a pound, but they have it at half an ounce.
Half an ounce?
It's nothing I put in wrong. I checked our back end, and all the stuff I put in is correct. So I don't know how they did that.
Will, is Rapid Crush, you guys produce the software, what's called again? Hello Profit?
No, we don't. There's another one that we promote, but yeah,
Okay.
I've heard it's good.
Yeah, well, just as food for thought, while you guys are growing your Amazon business, we use, it's called Hello Profit. And it was really a revelation to Seth, especially since he handles all the numbers and our finances, that some products he would mention to me, he'd say, you realize we sold 20,000 units of this and we only profited $400, something ridiculous like that. So, is that pretty accurate? Yeah, something like that. But it was really an eye-opener because it calculates all of the FBA fees, shipping fees, all of your pay-per-click advertising, or what's it called? Sponsored ads, headline ads, those types of things. So a product that looked good on the top end, by the time you got to the bottom line on the P&L, was not even profitable. So then that allows you to do a better job of managing for profit. But when you're in super growth phase, it's really hard to back up and look at those things. So yeah, you have something you want to add to that? Okay, good.
What's it called again, Sean? Sorry.
What's the name of the
Hello Profit.
Hello Profit.
Yeah.
Hello Profit.
Hello.
Yeah, and it's very similar to Managed by Stats, which is the software that we use. Very, very good for end-of-year calculations of inventory in hand and costs and stuff like that too. If you're not looking at software solutions that will help you calculate that kind of stuff, it's nearly impossible to get that data from Amazon. I mean, we were doing it, we had a finance person doing it for us, downloading the transactions, creating spreadsheets and pivot tables, and I mean, it was crazy stuff and it wasn't even coming close. When you start looking at that real data, where you can break out products, product brands, product categories, and analyze the data that way in chunks or to an individual item or to an individual SKU, it is extremely eye-opening. And when you're starting to see, one of the fees that gets hidden in there is storage fees. Man, those are expensive. Holy cow. What's that? Yeah. It's going up again? Yeah. So the fees increase during the holidays. Yeah, because they don't want everybody storing that stuff. They're out of space. Inventory, shelf space is at a premium.
So I had a question earlier about essentially how the rough outline of how you would do the kind of the test marketing on, you buy a quick batch here, you put it up on Amazon and see how it sells. I'm kind of, I mean, the launch tends to be the most expensive part of a lot of these products. Where you're doing giveaways, you're doing promos, you're doing a lot of that, and a lot of the work is in the launch. So I'm wondering, as fast as you try and put up products, if you have an abbreviated version of that, and what your metric of success is for that.
Yeah, we actually, there is sort of an outline that we go.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the question was, is there a systematic way to do launch in it quickly, right?
Yeah. You're just
Basically,
testing to see if the product
we want to test the viability of the product. How do we do that? How do we do the launch? So I'm going to actually let Seth answer that question, and maybe not right now. We want to save that for the Okay, yeah, so let's circle back to that this evening, because really this morning I'd rather discuss more about working in the market versus building the Amazon business.
The reason I ask is whether or not I need to get it customized with like a logo and whatnot for these small test orders for this viability.
Good point. So yeah, for launching new product, I would say 9 out of 10 times we don't even bother with getting customized package or logo. You know, a lot of people do, and they want to make sure everything's perfect, but for us, you know, we want to fail quickly. So if we throw it out there and it doesn't work, there's no sense in spending all the extra time on customizing packaging. But we will get into more detail about that when it comes to, you know, our evening workshop.
Yeah.
For actually building the Amazon business, and you guys will be able to tap into Seth for that. He'll kind of part the curtain there and let you in on that. We have a system for that, right? Yeah.
So like one way to look at it is, you know, most people like Shawn said want to have it perfect, right? Because they're very proud of it and they want to present themselves well. And it is very possible that you will fail twice as much if you don't do the customization. It's possible. But if you fail twice as much but can go 10 times as fast, it works out, right? I'm making up those numbers, but to exemplify the concept. And that's kind of what Shawn does, right? You guys want to move ridiculously fast. So if he did the customized packaging and made everything perfect, he might get a better success rate, but he'd have to go a lot slower. So overall, he still loses.
Slow, not in my vocabulary. If it wasn't for Seth, you know, we'd probably have 10,000 products and only 100 of them we'd making money. So.
Have you realized how much like Jason this guy is? And Seth and I connect.
Like, real facial hair.
Yeah. Am I saying that right? Yeah, close enough.
Yeah. So anyway, to answer your question, I'm not doing that. Okay. Yeah, so my objective is to get the product up and listed as quickly as possible, and I really buy into the fail quickly theory because, you know, if I get it out of the system real fast, then I don't have to waste any more time on it. If it works, then we'll turn it over to the professionals within our organization for packaging, for logo, for, you know, design, colors, those types of things. But the most important thing for me is to get the product listed and to create the listing, you know, to position ourselves to take a piece of that market share as quickly as possible. Does that answer?
Good enough.
Good deal. All right. Open for questions. Please.
Yesterday you mentioned when you're writing POs, you want to hash out as many details as you can with the manufacturer. Do you ever go back when you get back home and think of things in hindsight that you can then with PO? Is that possible to do?
I do. I actually, believe it or not, as much as I love the Yiwu market, I really hate making the trip over here. So I do most of our sourcing online because I have a network of sourcing agents all over the country. I actually have, instead of a signature line on my email that goes out for sourcing, it's instructions that apply to every single product every time. As far as no logos, no UL certificate stuff, you know, packaging in plain white box, those types of things. So I just add that to the signature line that says, attention, you know, this, I don't have the exact language, but maybe I'll pull it up tonight. All my emails hosted on Google, guys, so I was trying to pull up some spreadsheets for you guys, and I just can't do it. It's on Google Drive, so maybe somebody can help me out with that later. I do have some questions that you guys may or may not have thought about when you're talking to suppliers, and I'll go over those with you here before we take off this morning.
Yeah, okay.
But, yeah.
What is the UL certificate?
Underwriter Laboratories is it's a third-party company, actually provides safety inspection for electrical products, like you see on plugs and electronics appliances. A lot of Chinese manufacturers in there, right, it makes the product more valuable if it says UL, but if it shows up at U.S. Customs and has a UL and you don't have a UL certificate, then you just lost your entire shipment. And that's why you need someone like Beja on your side. When you actually, what we do with David Beja, which is going to be on your resource list, whenever we send a new PO to a supplier, he's copied on the email, so he follows it. He'll go in and check whatever the import duty is for that product in case it's something we didn't think of. And then he'll say, okay, now be careful with this particular category. You don't want to have this, this, or this on it unless you can back it up. And, you know, we've lost product. I mean, not in our Amazon business, but in my 20 years of importing Chinese stuff, I've lost product for, you know, silly things like having USB printed on the box, you know, in that type of logo. So that's why in the blanket email that goes out, my signature line says, don't do this, 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 or this. And I'll try to get you guys a copy of that or read it to you maybe tonight. But it's real important because logos, trademarks, all that stuff we talked about, the as seen on TV products. I mean, something as simple as SD, like if you had a USB charger, like you were talking about doing, if you have a USB logo on there, like the 3 forks or something like that, I mean, you can get problems with customs. SanDisk, you know, owns the trademark SD for like an SD card slot. And if you don't have a certificate from them with the authority to use that trademark, then you can actually lose the entire shipment. So those things are real important. Let me grab this first.
Is the UL required for certain products? Because some of the suppliers that I talked to yesterday, that's exactly what they were telling me, is that we don't have the certificate because it's a hassle to get it.
Right.
And I can guarantee you that 91
It's
and
not,
90%
her
of the
question
suppliers.
is UL required
Yeah.
to import into the US? It's not. It's required for a lot of vendors. If you want to sell to box stores, or if you want to, say, do QVC or something like that, they won't accept the product if it's not UL certified.
Right.
But an alternative to that, which is cheaper and is really easy for Chinese manufacturers to get, is ETL. So you might want to write that down. Ask ETL, Echo Tango Lima. Ask your supplier if they have ETL certificate, which is still, it's sort of like the Asian version of UL. So it shows that they've done a little bit of work in making the product safe. We never require a UL for our Amazon products. I mean, one of the things that we ordered yesterday, they asked, do we want that? And it, you know, it adds a lot to the cost and doesn't, you don't really get that much value, in my opinion. But what you don't want to do, and this happens, and David's fought this for me for years, is manufacturers will put UL on the cord itself, on the electrical cord. It'll say, you know, 110, 120 volt, and it'll say UL. They think that that's what you want, and they think that that adds value. And it does if it was legitimate, but like I said, if it's inspected and they ask, and the customs officer asks for a UL certificate, if you don't have it, they're going to confiscate the entire load. So we have to, that's another good reason to use your inspection service. But that's all that's in my email, you know. It says don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, always do that. So we're just talking about certificates. In China, they believe they can just create a certificate and email it to you and everything's fine. Or like David says, some of his famous words are, it's okay, just pay something. Well, it doesn't work like that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when you're speaking to suppliers and they're saying that they have this certificate or that certificate, they could be just lying through their teeth?
True, yeah. She says suppliers, she's asking me to confirm that suppliers will lie about their certificate. Yes, it's true, they will. So
you could like buy 500 units and find out that.
Get a copy of the certificate, and then you can go on the database on UL or USB or any whatever certificate you're claiming, FDA, and check it and see if it's legitimate. Usually it's not. It's just the way it is. I mean, I didn't make it that way. Yes.
In the market, when we see a lot of varieties of product, are these manufacturers, or it would just, or is it wise to validate that, you know, we've seen that some of the product might not be actually manufactured by the same manufacturer? So how do we know where this product is actually coming from? Because if we were asking, I know a few times I was asking, are you the manufacturer? And they said yes. And then when I would ask another question, I realized, no, I'm not dealing with the manufacturer. So what would you suggest on that one?
If I understand the question, you're saying, how do you know if they're really a manufacturer when they say they are? You have 12 suppliers and they all claim that their brother owns the factory. That's where some of the questions that we talked about last evening, minimum, I mean, like CBM per container, you know, what the requirements are for customized packaging, whether or not they're selling to other U.S. buyers, things like that. And I have like a 15-question list here. Some of it's going to be really elementary that everyone thought of, and some of the things that if you ask manufacturers this, you're going to stump them. And you know, if the person actually owns the factory, they should know exactly what the lead time is for the product. They should know exactly how many units go on a container. What was your little hack for that?
The inspection. When can we schedule a factory inspection?
Yeah. Yeah, they have to know that if they're a factory owner.
So do we pass on those ones if we find a question that we know?
No, I like to remind you, don't get hung up on, I only want to deal with the direct manufacturer.
Right.
Remember the whole theory about fail quickly?
Yeah.
When you find a product that's viable on Amazon, that's creating huge amounts of profit for you, you're going to spend the time that's necessary to find a real manufacturer. You may even hire a professional sourcing agent to do that for you.
Okay, so that was my concern, if the product doesn't become viable, and then all of a sudden I can't get it fulfilled. But you're saying, okay, that's the next step. If you pass that, the litmus test, then you're going to source the more valid manufacturer so you can do this long-term
Exactly.
Was that one of
and
the
get it
services
fulfilled.
that offers?
Yes. Now, I'll spend some time on that, but remember, my main focus is to get the product in hand and to get it listed on Amazon so I can let the Amazon marketplace vote with their credit cards, if that makes sense to you, versus, you know, trying to make everything perfect. And everything perfect is packaging, it's the supplier, it's, you know, the lead time. I mean, I've even air freighted product in that the freight costs more than the product itself because I wanted to get to market quickly. So for me, speed is the most important thing. So we have tons of questions. What was that you said?
Is that the service David offers?
The service I was talking about last night is not something that David offers per se, but he's willing to do it for this group for 30 days, you know, post-event time, just to help you guys, because a couple of people mentioned, and this gentleman here from Australia last night, he was frustrated because he can't find. He said, "You told me in Vegas there was, you know, this section of this sort of product." Well, I know for a fact it was there the last time I shopped the market because we sell that product. Now, of course, that was over a year ago, but July is going to hold his hand and take you to that section. If it doesn't work out for you, let me know, and I'll come up with some other story. Questions, please.
Yeah, can you explain a little bit more, because this UL and NTL is a new story for me. What is it necessary for, and what the confiscation aspect if I order electronics?
It's not required for anything other than some vendors may, like you said, some stores may say you have to have this certification because the certification means that it's undergone some type of standardized testing, and so they know that the product has some level of quality. But it is not absolutely required for any product to be sold in the U.S. These are third parties that do testing. So if there's an electrical equipment or a motor or an engine, the supplier will submit the specifications for that thing, and this laboratory will test it, and if it doesn't pass the certification requirements or the specification requirements, they'll fail it. If it passes it, then they stamp it, say we've tested it and it has passed. So it's not required for anything, and the reason Shawn is saying don't let them stamp it if it's not is because when customs sees that, they will look at it, they'll ask you, where's the certificate? I want to make sure it's not being counterfeit or lied about, right? And if you can't provide that, it's as good as having something counterfeit.
Yeah, exactly. In 2010, I lost, I think it was 5,000 netbook computers when the low price netbook computers were taken over because the factory on the charger put UL. They just put a sticker on the plug. It wasn't even printed, just one little circle sticker that said UL, and it wasn't UL. And you would think, you know, if the customs agent thinks like an independent businessman, which they don't, by the way, I could go to the port, remove the sticker, and everybody's happy. No, it doesn't work that way, especially not for me. Basically, they're going to charge you for storage while they investigate, and then they're going to charge you to destroy it, to shred it and put it in a landfill, and then they're going to charge you a fine for importing it like that. Definitely, I'm not trying to scare you. This almost never happens. But to elaborate a little further, some things that do require inspection would be like a mobile phone type device. You have to have an FCC certificate, or let's say like FDA, like medical devices. To import that as a medical device, you have to have an FDA certificate. And that's when having a good customs broker like Beja, Custom House Brokers, he can inform you, because when you make the order, if you put him in the email, he'll say, hey, now make sure you have this, this, and this in order. If not, then here's your risk. And sometimes, you know, sometimes we assume the risk anyway and say, well, we'll just try it. If it doesn't work, fine. You know, so you can make up your mind. But it's nice to have somebody in your corner that understands these things. Let me start right here.
We're looking at a small lightweight product, but it has a rechargeable battery. Should we assume that we're going to have to sea ship that, or is there a process we can go through to get it airshipped?
You know, batteries are really not my cup of tea. I hate to give you the wrong information on that. If anybody here knows anything about customs and batteries, then, you know, maybe you can speak on the subject.
I've got a very small battery, and I air freight it without any issue.
You air freight it?
Yeah. There's Amazon's got like a certain, under a certain size, they just give you an exemption, and air freight doesn't seem to have any problem with it.
So this is an Amazon thing, or I thought this was a custom?
No, it is, but I'm just saying, you've got to, if you have a battery, you're going to have to go through Amazon and let them know as well.
Okay.
And below the certain, mine is below their exemption size, is what I'm telling you.
Okay.
And when I air freight it, I've never had any issue from DHL or anybody else about it.
Okay.
Thank you. Sharon. Yeah.
I have one other question. If I want to make an order today, can you go through the process again? Because personally, I'm not clear.
Okay. Dave, do you have purchase orders?
Yes.
Has blank purchase orders. If you stop at the front desk and ask in the lobby for purchase orders from Panther Group, David's export company's name is already printed. So you can sit down with the manufacturer and write up the order. Someone asked me last night, should I go ahead and sign the purchase order? Was that you? I mean, don't get caught up on that, because just because you sit there and write the purchase order is not really a legal binding contract. Just kind of makes everybody feel warm and fuzzy, I guess. But I mean, I can write purchase orders all day long, and then I get back to the hotel, I just, you know.
But then we pay later to David? I mean,
What you're gonna do with the purchase order, once you fill in, you know, what you're buying, what the specs are, the price and the quantity, give it to your translator. Your translator will give it to David. David will contact you with a total dollar amount, and he's gonna add a fee of $100 per purchase order, okay? The limit of 3 per person, and it has to be at least a value of $1,000 or more. Otherwise, it's easier for you to just wire the money or pay cash or something like that.
Yeah, you do not have to use David's service. I strongly recommend it. Is it $100 a transaction?
Yeah, by then you should have a pretty good understanding of the process, and you should be able to just wire the factory directly. But we're just trying to streamline it for you right now, just to get in the game.
So for $100, are you getting one product or potentially 3 products?
One per product.
Per product, $100.
Yeah.
So even if, well, that's a good question. So if we have one vendor, you have one supplier with 2 products. It's 1 fee or 2 fees? He doesn't even care. It's only $100. It's just.
This just for here. You know, I don't make money here. Here.
Yeah, he's not making money on
He
this.
doesn't
Just work
really
with
want
just work with
$100.
him.
He just wants to help you move forward with it. So don't make an habit of it.
Yeah, I'm not worried about there's a limit of 3, so I'm like, I figure I got
He'll do this for you 3 times.
I'm just seeing how much I can get for
There you
$300.
go.
That's where I'm at.
If you twist his arm, you might get double that. If you twist his arm.
what are we getting? I mean, David is doing the transaction and then we have to talk separately.
He's going to
to
finalize
client.
the deal with your supplier. She says, what are we getting for $100? David's going to say, okay, this is the final arrangement. We're paying this much for this product and this is where it's shipping. He's going to pay your supplier. They're going to make sure that they contact the shipping company that it gets shipped. So you won't have to follow up with
He's
your supplier.
contacting the shipping company?
His staff will contact, they'll book the freight for you using the account that you set up with either Forrest or Cass or whoever your forwarder is. Basically, he's making the connection between you and the supplier once you're back home. So you don't have to worry about it.
So we have to make sure we set up an account with Forrest or Picasso.
When I say set up an account, you don't actually have to open an account with terms or anything like that. I'm just saying establish a relationship so that she knows if I send you this shipment, you know that what to do to book it. Okay? It's,
When it comes to kids or baby products, what are your biggest green no-nos as far as materials and so on? I know that a lot of people say BPA free and so on and so forth. Can you elaborate on that?
the question is, what are the top 3 no-nos to do with baby products? And honestly, I don't have an answer to that. I mean, I've heard some war stories about people having, like, you know, no lead in the paint, BPA free, you know, has to be labeled, you know, your poly bag has to say, you know, suffocation hazard, those types of things. That's something that you definitely want to take up with your customs agent. I'm a salesman / marketer / hustler, whatever you want to call me, so I don't really get caught up in all the details. My job is just to sell a whole bunch of crap. So, yeah, so if I give you advice on baby products, it's probably not going to be correct. So I hate to sidestep the question, but I really don't know. If it sells, though, I'll figure it out. I can guarantee that. Yes.
Basic question. In terms of working out all the the prices and whatever, first product from China, yesterday very excited, signed a purchase order with a supplier. We never got anywhere near the 50, they wanted like 300 as a minimum. Worked out pricing, but if I start including quality control and then the other freight services and costs that I can't seem to get an exact amount yet.
Yeah.
How I try and factor all that in, then, I mean, FBA, at the end of the day, Amazon's price is Amazon price, you can't do anything with that. That's the only fixed.
So you want to find out what your landed cost is going to be.
Yeah.
The main variable that you're going to look at there is the shipping cost. And there's basically, especially from China, because, you know, a lot of products ship from China, shipping is almost a commodity. I mean, there's an amount that, per kilogram, per size and weight that is gonna cost you to air freight it. Ocean freight is within 15 to 20% of every other broker, so, if you get a quote, like if you call Casa and get a quote, tell them exactly what the product is, the size and weight, they can give you a quote, and you can pretty much use that across the board. If you guys are working on such narrow margins that you have to worry about a 15% increase in shipping, then I would recommend a different product, definitely. But it's, give me an idea, per kilogram air freight, how much?
To where?
To US.
US. $5.
See, it's just a known thing, about $5 per kilo for air freight. Yeah, but obviously if you have a pallet full of batteries, it's going to cost more than a bunch of styrofoam or something like that. But that's a roundabout figure, and it's something that all the shipping companies know.
I asked Kitty this morning, and she couldn't give me a price at all.
She can't give you a price.
She said we're in the States, and when we've done our products and then bought in America, shipped in America, it took forever for them to tell us which warehouse they wanted to ship to.
For the exact product and the address, the ship to address?
We didn't know where to ship to because we're our experience in America.
Tell her to use her warehouse, any warehouse. Pick a warehouse to just give you an idea.
When we're dealing with these suppliers and we're trying to decide exactly how to go about this business, it's not like buying, life insurance or setting up a new brokerage account. You don't have to make sure everything's perfect. You just have to pull the trigger and start moving forward. I mean, that's how I do it every day.
Yeah, what we've done is just pick an address of the FBA warehouse in Ontario, California.
There you go.
It's done. Just ship there, right? And it may be a different cost, but if you estimate another 10 or 15% on top of that, it'll cover going to other warehouses. It is 5 minutes till 9. We want to make sure that you get the most time in the market, because that's what you're here for. We have plenty of time for questions this evening at 8 p.m. David, are we going to be in this room?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to be in this room, subject to change.
This hotel?
Yeah.
This hotel? This hotel?
This hotel. That I'm sure of, Elena. I'll bet on that one.
Okay. Sorry, I'm speaking English. If you cannot understand, for sure. Sure, understand more than you guys. Okay. So you are with services in the market today. Okay. If yesterday one client asked me, hey, we meet beggar there. Follow me. I have to stay there. I don't know who.
Beggar.
Yeah, beggar.
Who met beggar?
I did.
Or you? Okay.
I met one, but I didn't talk to you about it.
Are you talking about the passport?
No, the beggar. Yes, so Trish. Okay. So anyone been there? So you don't ask them. You don't answer. You just go ahead. Or you stop there. So you don't give their money. You don't talk with them. So they have nothing to do.
Just ignore them. The idea is to just ignore. If somebody approaches you and it looks fishy, just keep going. Just ignore.
Yeah, I was going to translate his Chinglish. In other words, pretend you're in Vegas and they're passing out the little pornography cards on the street. No eye contact. And keep your hands in your pockets. You're okay.
All right. So that just.
How much can I see?
Just everybody signed up who wants a translator, right? If you change your mind based on any criteria, price, travel plans change, let me know right now. Just come up to the front so we can adjust. And how about the ticket prices? He's bringing Tony in right now.
Okay. Anybody needs a train ticket?
Tony, come up here, please. Just stay up here so they can.
This is Tony. This is Bertha. Okay, if you want a train ticket, give him. He needs your passport information and money. Just the number. Passport number. Do you have it? You need passport. Okay, so need the physical passport and the money for the train ticket. Sorry for the confusion. He'll be here, so you can bring it right back.
Oh, hold on, everybody, hold on. Elena brought up an important question. The event on Thursday, we need a little bit more detail on that as to what time we're leaving and what it is about.
Okay. The event, the group outing on Thursday, we're going to a tourist area that's sort of like a Hollywood Studios. It's where a lot of the Chinese filmmakers actually produce their movies. So they have miniature, or not miniature, but what's it called?
Mock-up.
Yeah, there you go. They have like Vegas style. They have like terracotta warriors, for example, Emperor's Palace. You know, a section of the Great Wall, sort of like a tour of China within the studio. So it's kind of a fun thing to do, sort of team building, if that's what you want to call it. If it's not your thing, obviously you don't have to do it. But David.
But what time does it get back?
It is an all-day thing. I don't know what all day is, we'll find out.
All right, we have a bus leaving the hotel at 8 a.m. on Thursday morning. Okay?
When after we come back? David, what time do they come back?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, the bus will be back.
And lunch will be provided, it's already included. So 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock, we'll all be there. Some of us are leaving early to catch flights. Does that give you enough information to make a decision? It's strictly fun, just hanging out, enjoying the site. Right?
Have a very productive sourcing day, everybody.
Yeah, I want to see lots and lots of stacks of purchase orders tonight.